million for total staff employee benefits will not be exceeded. And I put it to you, Kevin, that when you consider the 14-15 annual report, the employee that we're looking at today, the employee benefits budget was set at 729, and it's come in, according to volume 1, page 161, at 792. So this budget this year that we're signing off, or last year in the annual report, has had a variance. I don't say blowout because when I use that I normally get shut down pretty quickly. Had a variance of 63 million. And this is on top of the previous annual report that showed a variance of 50 million, where we budgeted for 13-14 680 and we came in at 730. So my concern is, in the last 2 financial years we've exceeded budget quite substantially, and in 15-16 we've got a budget of 771 million, but we've already spent in 14-15 792 million. So what are the chances of us going backwards in a growing population? And so what are the chances of that, Mr. Mayor? And my concern is of meeting that budget, given it's going to be smaller than what we've already spent last year, this year's budget. And my concern is we've got 912 million in for 2024-25, but the way we're tracking, Kevin, I suspect that we will exceed $1 billion in total staff costs by the end of this LTP period. So are we able to spend less on wage and salaries this financial year than last, because that's what the budget says we have to do?
So yeah, look, any one particular budget line within the overall long-term plan, or in this case the annual plan year we're talking about, has ups and downs. We can't confirm exactly what it's going to be. What we do know for sure is that we are actually managing to the overall bottom line of the council group. And in fact, we did better than anticipated, despite the fact the salaries was higher than originally forecast. What the Chief Executive is tasked with doing is balancing resourcing to actually deliver on the outcomes of the council group, or in this case the parent, and then leading some of the other parts of our council family. So yeah, we overall spending for supplies and staff was within 0.5% of budget. The staff costs are up, and we've talked quite a bit about the actual reasons for that. Some of that was the insourcing. Some of it is a positive implication. You need to resource if your city is growing. If you're trying to implement plans, then we're at the implementation phase now. If you're trying to support the increased patronage numbers on our rail network, if you're trying to process applications quicker for the strategic housing areas and the increased quantity of building consents, resource consents, building inspections that are occurring, we have to resource for that. So yeah, individual lines are hard to say that we will definitely meet those budgets, and as you've already said, $792 million this year already does exceed last year's budget. The task that is, though, is to balance the resourcing needs where we're spending the funds to deliver the overall outcomes.
So, in short, Kevin, are you confident at this point that we're going to be able to come within the budget of 771 million for this current financial year, that we won't be staring down another variance for the 3rd time running next year?
As I say, for one individual line, no, I can't give that assurance. It may well be for good commercial reasons it's determined that we should be bringing some resources in-house to save money, as we did this year with animal management. We saved the ratepayers $1 million by increasing our FTEs by 48 people. It cost us less to deliver that service in-house. So good commercial decisions will be made during the year, which means I can't give the assurance that one particular line will be on budget.
Just finally, Mr. Chair, why did we go out, Kevin, and consult on 748 million as a budget for 15-16, and then revised it up to 771 million? Why did we add on another 30 million within a couple of weeks as to the finalisation of the LTP?
Because during that period we saw the growth numbers coming through. The consenting numbers were increasing over time. So we knew that there was a need to increase it. Have we increased it enough? We will have to work during this financial year to determine that.
Well, and I also see that we've actually revised down the staff costs for 2024-25 from about 931 million to 912 million. That seems unusual given how we've been tracking over the last 5 years. And are you confident that we can that we can stay within $1 billion by the end of this LTP period?
As you should be aware, there's a major effort on actually streamlining our systems and processes. Newcore is a major initiative to enable us to actually streamline processes, provide more self-service for our customers, which actually enable us to reduce our staff count. So yeah, there is anticipated if we can actually tighten up our systems and processes internally, provide better services, we can actually reduce the internal headcount, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And these are good and useful questions. My feeling is they're just kind of in the wrong place. My concern is that we do need to be able to talk directly with our Chief Executive about how we're tracking on things like staff numbers, on budgets, on the impact of every time we ask for something new that is unbudgeted and ask our Chief Executive to deliver it, there are costs associated that we sometimes completely ignore. I'm a little bit concerned that our Chief Executive's Performance Committee should be dealing with these issues, and we need opportunities for all councillors to attend that and to be able to have discussions in confidence with our Chief Executive to raise, quite rightly, exactly the questions that Councillor Brewer is raising. I don't think these should be swept under. I'm not asking you, Councillor Brewer. I'm actually talking.
To annual report numbers.
I'd like to. I listen. No, Councillor.
Stop.
Can I just be
Councillor,
supported?
Right.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, just order, please. Councillor Brewer, I'm quite comfortable with your line of questioning, so I'm the final arbiter of that. Councillor Penny Hulse is merely expressing her view too, so we don't need to get too excited about either of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's called democracy. You have a turn, I have a turn. That's how it works. Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm supporting Councillor Brewer having these questions sensibly answered and dealt with. My concern is that we are just, as a council, this is not a once a year discussion. This should be a weekly and a monthly discussion. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm asking for your guidance on how we revamp our Chief Executive's Performance Committee so that this is actually the subject of our discussion rather than once a year as part of the final signing off of our audited accounts.
Thank you. It's just in terms of how often we reflect on these accounts, of course, we reflect on them through Councillor Penny Webster's committee every month. We get very, very regular updates on the state of the play, mostly around our balance sheet. Of course, key part of our balance sheet is what are our employment costs, what are our operational costs. At the heart of the operational costs are how many staff we're employing, what it costs us to employ them. I guess the issue that I would like Kevin to feed back into Penny's committee, and if anyone wants to raise issues specifically around the CEO's performance on the management of staff issues, in that committee too, but particularly in Penny's committee, because these are financial issues, is the decisions to in-house, and therefore rather than contract out. And so when I had this self-same question, I think it was actually from Councillor Pruitt the other night, on the issue of what we're doing with our staff numbers, I did make the comment that I felt that staff numbers could fluctuate around the fact that we would go from contracting out where they are not specifically noted, but nothing but a contract, a cost centre, to a point of contracting in where you specifically taking on staff and they're counted at the bottom end. So, Kevin, can you just give us just very quick reflection on the point you made about the fact that we are moving some of our activities in, just for the sake of completeness today?
Yeah, that was one example, Your Worship, which was animal management. I mean, those are the business decisions we're making on how to deliver those outcomes. Ultimately, what the intention is that the Chief Executive is tasked with achieving the outcomes, and what his concentration is really on the input side. So where the dollar is spent, be it insourcing, outsourcing, obviously if it's going to have any major impact on customer service, on the implications on the organisation and what we're actually here to achieve, that would be coming to one of the committees to actually to discuss. Whether it's a reasonably small one, it's actually the service provider is going to be almost the same, but it's just actually a commercial decision, then that's been done by the business in those cases, reasonably small.
Very good. Councillor Alf.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the 5-year period that has been referred to, how much has the population grown?
Yeah, we've talked about it before. So the population is around about 10% increase over that 5-year period.
Okay, and I think the numbers are bad around
150,000.
130.
Yeah, 150,000.
Yep, 132,000.
As a result of the increase in population, wouldn't that be put pressure on the services, infrastructure, customer services? Wouldn't that put pressure on those sort of areas within the council?
Yeah, yep, through the chair, the two component pieces there are increasing services, demand extra resourcing. Economies of scale is suggesting we can actually now reduce those headcounts. So the combination of those two is combined. So yeah, although there's a 10% increase in population, the headcount, the FTE equivalent is about 3% down on what it was prior to amalgamation, despite that growth. Because as well as coping with extra services, providing additional services in some cases, we have actually managed to introduce those economies of scale.
Okay, and Your Worship, I'm glad you mentioned the contracting in or out, because animal management was the question I was going to ask around bringing that within council. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cam, one more and then we'll move on.
Well, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to correct the assertion that this is only brought up by me once a year. I think you'll recall most
you've been
budget
very
debates
consistent.
and annual plan. I put up an amendment which would actually have frozen the top line budget of wage and salaries, and that was lost by 6 votes to 17. So some of us have tried to slow down this escalation and others haven't.
Yeah, okay. Look, thank you. Now, just last speaker, Councillor Bell.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure if it's a question for Kevin or for our Chief Executive. Given that we've come in with a 0.5% on budget, on total council operating expenditure, we have heard that we had staff shortages in certain areas like building inspections where we're losing staff to other councils who are paying more or providing more perks. What is the shortage that we have identified in the building inspecting area, if there is indeed one, and what steps can we take to rectify that? Because it takes a year to train them up and $100,000, I understand. It's a crucial area of our growing economy.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm sorry, I don't have any specific details on that. What we do have is a balancing resourcing level. So what we do is have a core level of staff, employees, but we do bring in contract temporary staff to actually cope with those peaks. Part of the anticipation is when will the peak occur? Is this a temporary aberration? Is it going to be ongoing? So staff are being built up over time, which is evident in our numbers. We have, we've increased our resourcing and building consent staff by over 50 there, because we're anticipating this trend is going to continue. There's all the good reasons to support that, so we've brought more staff on to cover. But the fact is we do still have contracting staff on to actually assist with those, and if we are losing staff, we'll bring more of those on to fill the gap.
Thank you. Councillor Mike.
Sorry, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to follow on from the points that Councillor Brewer is making, I've heard recently, possibly in response to press releases, council officers make the point, and we've heard it here, alluding to a linear relationship between Auckland's population and council staff numbers, and the officer made the point again that actually, in terms of numbers, staff numbers are 3.2% lower than the collective staff establishment of the previous legacy councils. But I think that's missing the point. Councillor Brewer is talking about the budget and the cost, and I don't think the cost of our staff budget is 3.2% lower than that amalgamation in 2010, and that is the point if we're dealing with the annual plan and we're dealing with the budget and we're dealing with rates, because that's what ratepayers are interested in, the cost, not really the numbers.
And that's right. And so, look, I don't want to carry on too much longer on this because this is an annual plan report. Linda, I'm going to give you the last say, and I mean the last say, so that we can actually just move on from this, because all of these debates will be a part of the annual plan discussion that we've got coming up fairly shortly, and we will have 8 months to try and find some savings around staffing costs. So that'll be a good try.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm very heartened that we're within 0.5% of the budget. I think that's a win for us. But I think that we've got to balance the fact that people are screaming for more housing, absolutely screaming for more housing. There's a shortage of housing in Auckland, and just one of those issues is increase 5% of building consents, 5 to 6% in resource consents, and 5% increase in building inspections. That actually takes staff to do that, and we can't say that we can't increase those staff to do that work and then at the same time be voting in SHAs more houses and trying to meet that need in Auckland. There is a reality check here for us, and if we want that increase in housing to house the people that are coming here, we have to provide the staff to do that. Otherwise we'll have houses falling down, poorly built, and that's another thing that people are crying out for, well-built homes. Thank you, Mr.
Right, I'm going to move the recommendation, and it's seconded by Councillor Penny W. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Councillors, I'm just going to, in item 13, give you a brief summary of